I'm Ricky.
And I'm Joe, and this is Season 9, Episode 7 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, slated to come out on June 1st, 2026. And we're going to talk about some coding and AI and all the blah, 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 blah stuff that we talked about earlier in the season. But first, we're going to talk about Southern Tier's Rope Swing Sipper. It's a 5% ABV beer. It is a strawberry mango Kolsch, and it's part of their small batch series. It says, when the days grow long and the air turns warm, this crisp Kolsch style is your go-to for easy summer sipping. Flavors of juicy strawberry and mango meet for fruit-forward refreshment that tastes like a backyard afternoon in full swing. And I'm just going to say, Southern Tier knows how to make sure you can read their copy because I could read that. And the other one, 1911, come on, 1911, you got to get your game better on that. So, what you think?
It's not bad. I think it's a pretty decent fruit beer. As someone who would maybe put strawberries and mangoes in their top, like 3 or 4 fruits, I was expecting to like it more. I think it does nail like a little bit of that tropicaliness with the mango. There is definitely a fruit flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure I would call that forward. I kind of get it more on the back end than I do on the front. But like the underlying Kolsch isn't bad. The fruit flavors themselves are good. They're just not very strong. So like it's, I wouldn't pick it up in a place where I would really want something that really tastes like fruit. Like that's when I would go to that creamsicle that has like a good apple taste, a good orange taste. Where this is kind of more, hints of flavor in beer. Like if you've maybe think of it this way. If you had the difference between like putting in like a strawberry flavor enhancer for water, or there's like a powder you mix in, versus you've got one of those little water infusers that you've dropped some strawberries in.
Yeah.
Right. This is the drop some strawberries in. There's a mild flavor there. But, in all honesty, it's probably exactly how they made it. Is they just made a Kolsch and then they let some strawberries and mangoes kind of sit in there and steep a little bit.
Yeah.
As opposed to like mixing in juices for them, which would also explain the color because it's a very beautiful clear color.
Yeah, so it's a gorgeous.
Yeah, there's not strawberry juice in that.
Yeah. It's a gorgeous color. So I'm going to continue to kind of drink this as it warms up and see if I continue to discover this. I don't like this. I will drink it. But this is my least favorite beer of the whole last
season.
2 seasons.
2 seasons. Okay.
And we had some bad ones last season. Those tequila one that we had last season and stuff like that. We had a couple that we were like, ugh, no, this is kind of rough. There is something about the mixture of the Kolsch bitterness and the strawberry that does not set well with my tongue. It's like a almost rotten fruit, like kind of smell flavor thing.
It's the green of the strawberry. So they probably put whole strawberries in. You can taste a little bit of the leaf, which is like a weird. It's not hop, but it's kind of like hop adjacent, which might be throwing you. And also like that's another thing with strawberry seeds when you're making like a strawberry mead or something like that. It's why you don't blend up the strawberries most of the time. Is because if too many of the seeds are cracked, they give like a kind of weird flavor to it.
Right. Well, so okay, I've made strawberry drinks. I've made like 3 different strawberry meads, or meads that have strawberry in them. I've also made a cider that I put strawberry in.
Yeah.
Made like a small batch, and it was all with fruit, but I took the end caps off, so maybe that's why I am not getting. Some of that, or maybe that's where that flavor is coming from, and I didn't get that in my other ones. But my other ones were either really light and fruity, or they were strawberry punch to the face.
Yeah.
Because like the strawberries were ripe enough to like impart their flavors into the alcohol.
Yeah, all the flavor in the strawberry is in whatever chunk of it's ripe. So like if you don't decap one, you've got kind of like the white part that has really no flavor.
Right.
The leaves do not taste amazing. The seeds, when cracked, are very bitter. There's a lot not going for it in a strawberry. But you have the perfect use case though. If you just slice it up and it's only like the good tasty part of the strawberry, it does impart a lot of like good flavor.
Right. So I did that. What it tastes like is they didn't do that. evidently, or whatever they did. Now, there is like this kind of back flavor of mango and strawberry that like I get whenever it breathes over my tongue that I do like from it. But just I would avoid this beer unless you particularly want to experiment with like something that's kind of funky or something like that. And it might get better as it's warmer. But there's some the thing that I'm tasting is specifically there's some sort of like hoppiness that's there that I don't like. It's not the hoppiness I get from IPAs though.
Yeah.
Like there, it's just something about that interaction with the hops and the strawberries or the mangoes that I don't. And I've made mango meads and stuff like that. I've never made a mango beer though, and I've never made a strawberry beer. This makes me want to make a strawberry beer and a mango beer and then a strawberry mango beer and see if I get the same results. Because if I do get some sort of weird like out of a small batch of beer like that, then I would know it's just the way the strawberry interacts with like the malt or the hops or something like that. But yeah, man, this I'm disappointed in Southern Tier. I normally really like their stuff, and it's not hitting today. Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I like it a little bit more than that, but I wouldn't go as far to call it a bad beer, but it's certainly not something I'd drink again.
Yeah, I'm not calling it a bad beer because there's probably somebody out there who really likes this. I mean, they're selling it, right? It's just not my beer, and it is my least favorite beer of like the last 2 seasons so far. There might be another one that we run across. I've got some more in the. I've got a couple of beers and ciders that I made. We're probably going to talk about. I know you've already tried them, but we're probably going to talk about the ginger beer and the cider I made last year because they've aged a good bit now and they'll be good for some things. So let's get right into it. So I put some long titles to these stories. I don't know why. AI coding in a production environment. Are we sacrificing quality and stability for quantity and speed?
Yes.
And I didn't think there would be an argument on either side of that. But is it the right trade? Because the people that were talking in this article, there's 2 people that were quoted. The guy that's like the CEO of Y Combinator, and another person who is a really well-known person that does development and is well-known for their quality of code. And they basically were pointing out all the reasons that the code is bad and that it's bloating and stuff like that because the AI doesn't have efficiency with how it does like compressed PNGs or something like that. So like web pages that it makes, backends that it makes, they have a bunch of artifacts that they shouldn't have, which slows down the compute power of whatever's processing this thing. We've already had that problem on the web for years. A guy named Brian Lunduke talks about that, where the web is crap, he says, or, your Linux is awful, Windows is awful, like he has like this running skit that he does. But his point is it's beautiful and wonderful and we should do better. The reason it's bad is because we're not adhering to the things that we should when it comes to it.
Yeah.
So web pages don't need to have a bunch of trackers and huge graphics on them and stuff like that. They can still be beautiful web pages without all of that stuff. Even if you're going to have that, there's efficient ways that you could do it. And this is kind of the article's topic here. Even if you want AI to do this, the way that we've trained Claude and other things like that to do code is very inefficient. And it gets the job done-ish. And while like people that don't understand how that works are like, this is great. It's kind of like Mr. Burns in The Simpsons. There was an episode where he went to the doctor and the doctor was like, you've got all these diseases. They're just kind of countering one another. And Mr. Burns says, I'm invincible. He says, no, the slightest thing will kill you. And the guy, Mr. Burns says, I'm invincible. I think that's the way businesses and especially more marketing focused CEOs are looking at AI. There's people in tech, they're like, oh no, wait, this is a bad idea, don't make all your infrastructure based off of this because it could tumble down at any moment. And they're like, I can do this without developers. I can do this without. They're like, no, you misunderstand, And so I think, at least my stance on this is sometimes you have to slow down to go faster. You have to do a lot of prep work.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we could get to the point to where Claude and other things like that are really writing good code on its own. I don't think that's today. And I think we need to invest more into it to write that good code.
Yeah, so I think this takes us back to 2 episodes ago of the where's the cost benefit of
Yes.
AI.
Yeah.
Where kind of in your own words right there saying, hey, I think this needs to be invested in because maybe someday it could do it. It doesn't do it right now. And what those CEOs are probably sitting there saying is, okay, it doesn't do it right now, but it does save me a lot of money that I can use to help invest in it getting better. And am I taking the gamble of I can get it better before the thing that's not perfect now breaks? And I'm not taking either side of that issue, other than I am agreeing with you. I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah.
I think right now, if you're really heavy into I want AI writing as much code as possible, you need to think about it more like a book, where what you need to be taking your developers from is saying, okay, my developers aren't writers anymore. Now they're editors. It's like, okay, cool, have Claude write your whole thing. But then actual developers that know how to optimize need to sit down and fix it up. Just like any manuscript would need an editor to help with, cohesion and grammar and things like that. And then you just need to cost benefit that. Is it faster to let your developers write it, or is it faster to just let them optimize it afterwards?
And that's tough because if you get
Well, there's no answer you and me can come up with because it's going to be so dependent on what you're writing.
it is dependent on what you're writing, and it's dependent on what you get spit out.
Mm-hmm.
Like even if you're writing something that would be groundbreaking, if the AI spits out really fantastic-ish code, even if it's not completely optimized, that's a good foundation that you can build off of. If it spits out mediocre code, you still could probably correct that. But if it's all bad or hallucinated, it doesn't like spit out good stuff, then you're gonna have a false economy. Essentially, you're gonna have a bad base.
Yeah, but you at some level control a little bit of that, right? Like how you're interacting and how you're doing your prompt engineering are gonna dictate a lot of the quality of what you get back. There's always going to be hallucinations. You have to treat every bit of code, even if it's with the best tool available right now, as if it's got hallucinations.
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to, though, more from a business angle, is your use case. If you're an app developer that makes like custom apps for people, and your app framework is 95% the same on every single one of your apps, and really what you're customizing is putting pictures in certain places, taking the user's content and putting it up on the various tabs and things like that, then yeah, maybe this is not terrible, because if you're going to feed in a code base of 50 apps you've done and they're all 95% the same, the AI is probably going to do a decent-ish job of that 95%, because it can just pick it up and throw it back in.
Right.
It doesn't have to think about what it's doing because it knows every example it's got. It's like, hey, this is how you do it. And then that 5%, maybe it doesn't do an amazing job, but it still gets it all written. All the functions are there. They just maybe aren't perfect. And then how hard is it for your development team to do the other 5%?
Yeah.
Compared to, hey, I'm just going to split something off and change that 5%. That's the other angle of it. Again, why you have to test to see how much you're actually saving as a company. Because in that, even that idyllic use case where most of your stuff is repeated and the AI will have access to it, your developers probably have strategies to break off that code and start from that 95% anyway.
Right.
So it really just does come down to how complex is something you're making. If you're doing like a completely bespoke, here's a brand new thing every single time, and they're always super complicated, then, I would just guess, and again, this is just me guessing, I'd say AI is probably not the best thing for that, because if it's really complicated and it's very unique, there's not a lot of training data. At the same time, if it's super easy to do and it's very well frameworked, maybe your developers can the difference in them fixing the 5% that's different isn't worth the time of it, automatically porting over the 95%. Because maybe you can do that part twice as fast. But if a developer can do it in 10 minutes and your AI can do it in 5, who the hell cares about 5 minutes on the development
exactly.
team? Right? So, like, yeah, I think it's just I think it's way too specific now to your use case to have like a blanket statement on it. But I do agree with you. I think a lot of people think that it's at the point that it could just write and do anything you wanted it to do.
Right.
When really, and I think as we discussed maybe 3 episodes ago, where we were talking about, maybe it was 4, our use cases that we have in our real life about doing AI. I'm a big proponent that for a lot of this monitoring stuff, for like hey, there's an issue, I just want you to go look for, did anything like this happen? Were there any changes in the last 48 hours and stuff like that? Things like that are great because if there's a hallucination, you're going to double check.
Right.
You're just compounding and saving time for people somewhere, but it's not creating anything someone will have to go and fix.
You're also saving brain cycles in that situation.
Yeah, you're saving brain cycles.
A lot of that monitoring is kind of mind numbing. It's like sitting on an assembly line and just kind of watching. And unless you've trained yourself to be able to kind of do that, it's really hard for you.
Yeah, it's very time consuming and things of that nature. So like, I think I see those as really clear wins. In the space that it writes my code for me, I'm not as convinced. It's certainly not for all use cases, but maybe there are some. I think it just really comes down to maybe back to the first point. I, as an engineer, don't think it's worth the trade-off in most cases that I'm aware of and that I would be exposed to. Fully admitting maybe there are other use cases that it makes sense for. But I can see the business person's perspective of them saying, yeah, look, it's not great right now, but I got my product out right now, and maybe our website kind of sucks. But in a year, it'll be even better, and then we'll redo the website, and then it'll suck less. And the getting my product to market, 2 months earlier was worth it.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes back into my first thing, like where you have something that's very useful and you can just get someone to kind of edit it, like you had said, like be an editor. That's really good. Where I see problems with this are things like what the guy from Y Combinator is talking about, where he's like, I've committed 70,000 lines of code into production, and it's all with the use of AI across like 5 different projects.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I mean, first of all, 70,000 lines of code for anybody is a lot. Number 2, who's checking your projects behind you? Because if you've committed that much with the help of AI, is anybody actually going in and like making sure that this is accurate or anything like that?
Well, probably they have to get AI to summarize it because of the volume of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then like that's the problematic viewpoint. The other guy that's like hypercritical is kind of on the other end, and I think there's somewhere in the middle, like you're saying, right? Like where it's like, well, it's really more dependent on your use case and what you're doing and how you're using the AI. But like, yeah, that's bad, and you probably shouldn't commit 70,000 lines of code without humans reading it and editing it. And it's probably a little bit short-sighted and kicking yourself, your own like self, to have done this super critical, in-depth dive into things. But I mean, you are right. Like, we for a long time have made like networking and the internet inefficient because we are trying to stuff so much into the packets that we're sending out. And there's all this like stuff that we don't need in there. It's just kind of superfluous, and it's lazy to do those things. So like, there's good points, but this is one of those things where AI is not doing the service that we think it is. It could be, and there might be a place for investment into making it the best that it could be to do this. But also, like, every developer that I know loves using Copilot because it helps them write a for loop that they've written 1,000 times, and you're just like and it just spits it out based off of what you started in your, whatever it is that you're doing in your coding language, right? Like it, and then if it needs to be edited, you can change the variable or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think I think that's another great perspective on it. If you like look at it at this spectrum, that like the guy saying, "Hey, I've committed 70,000 lines of code that no human has actually reviewed. They've just reviewed the AI summaries," is definitely wrong. We shouldn't be doing that. I think most of us can agree that's not great.
Yeah.
But then also the person on the other side who's saying, "Hey, we shouldn't be using it at all because look at these inefficiencies. We should just be getting developers to write stuff that's super strictly efficient." That guy's probably also not right.
Right.
You know, I think at this point in technology, AI is probably not going away. We're gonna talk all this in this muck of the area of, well, should it be in massive data center? Should it run on your computer? Should it be trained on everything? Should it be only trained on some things that are reputable? You know, everything like that. But I think it's equally foolish to say right now AI is going to be everything and then AI is going to be nothing.
Right.
It's surely going to be something. We just still have not found where is that balancing point.
Yeah. So let's talk about another reason that we should probably be moving away from Windows and putting some form of Linux on all of our devices. Microsoft is now starting to auto launch Edge when you log into Windows. So
Yeah.
it's not spread everywhere. It hasn't happened to me on my Windows computer, which I think I only have one in the house now.
Yeah.
But well, now I have two because well, no, I have more than that. I have a couple laptops that have Windows on them that are like Surface devices. This one is Windows 11, and I have another Windows 11 computer that's a desktop. Both of those are not getting this, so I haven't experienced this. Have you experienced this?
Of course, I only have Windows 10 still.
Okay, that makes sense.
I have one aging Windows computer, but onto this topic, Microsoft really has been doing some stuff I don't like recently. So I just had to order my company refresh, and I was going to go back to Windows because I just prefer developing in a Windows environment because that's just kind of what I was used to.
Right.
Not saying it's more efficient; it is almost factually not as efficient as being on a Unix system. But it was what I did for like 7 or 8 years before I was allowed to have a Mac at work. But I just got another Mac. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna deal with whatever's going on with
Yeah.
Windows 11 right now.
Exactly. Until Windows cleans up its mess, I'm kind of staying away from it. I mean, with Bazite and the kind of games that we normally like to play and stuff like that, there's not a whole lot of reason to get Windows.
Now SteamOS it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You want to play games? We've got a Linux distro specifically for games.
Well, and it doesn't cover every game. So like, you're not going to get like World of Warcraft or something
Sure,
like that.
yeah.
And I used to play World of Warcraft like religiously. So it was, a motivator for me to stay on Windows. And I can understand people that would stay on Windows for that sort of thing. But when you're talking about like your grandma, like, or your mom or your dad, depending on how old you are, and they don't really understand technology, they weren't computer engineers or anything like that, and you're like, oh, they want to have something that allows them to get onto the internet and look at the Facebooks and the whatever. I just made every grandma into my mom, which is not fair because some people are much cooler than my mom. My mom, I love you, but also you do talk like that. But anyways, if you've got a person in your life that doesn't understand technology, do you really want them to be put on something where the decision for how their computing is made by that platform and analyzed by that platform and then sold to marketing partners by that platform so that they can feed them more of those things? I don't think that's the right answer.
Yeah.
And I mean, Edge is just Chrome at this point. It's like,
it's a Chromium-based browser.
Yeah, like why are they like trying to stuff it down your face? Because
they get the data. They want your data.
Yeah, but they're already getting your data.
They want more of it.
They want more of your data.
They want them to only have it. Why are you giving your data to Mozilla, or why are you giving your data to Google? Give it just to us. Use our browser.
Yeah. Lame. Anyways, I think there's not really much of a topic here other than like I don't know why people are like. Oh, I do know why people, when it comes to games, are getting Windows computers. Unless you're getting like a $100 computer that comes with Windows on it, and you just don't have a choice. Why are you getting Windows on a computer anymore as an individual user?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head that Windows is still living in a world where people use it because either that's just all they know, and it is a big barrier to jump from a Windows-based system to a non-Windows-based system. You know, if you're having to completely relearn how to use a computer, sure. And then very specific softwares that run in certain platforms but not others. I think the mass appeal of, well, yeah, it's a Windows computer. What else would I get?
Yeah,
is gone. I think Apple kind of won that culture war.
Apple's won that culture war. I think in a lot of ways Linux has, because like every TV OS is based off of Linux. Everything that you're running in some sort of like, I mean, Android is basically Linux, right? iOS and Mac OS are both Unix based things. It's all some sort of X based, like thing, and everyone that's using Windows are the only people that are not using those sorts of things. And as we move more and more towards people using tablets, people using consoles, people getting away from desktops and laptop computers, we're like kind of in a place where, while Windows still has the majority of share of computers that are deployed, how many people are actually like using that on a regular basis? You know? Which is sad, but Microsoft's kind of put themselves in this place too. Okay. All right. So I don't know if I'm going to cut everything out. I might just be repeating what just happened. But Ricky just went into a coughing fit. So in the same recording session that we talked about it from 2 recordings ago, Ricky did not make it through this season without coughing.
No, I got so close. I ran out of water.
Yeah.
It was immediate. When I hit the bottom of that glass, I think I lasted another 15 seconds.
Yeah, you did. And you just started coughing. You got to a fit. That was kind of like what happened to me at the beginning. Anyways, I think we're done talking about Windows. To wrap it up, Windows is kind of like, no one should be using Windows if they have an alternative to use it, unless they need it for a specific, very specific reason. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. This has been Season 9, Episode 7 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast, slated to come out on June 1st, 2026. And every single time we start talking about like wrapping it up, and I forget to talk about the beer warming up. All right, so I've been sipping on this thing throughout. I like it a little bit better warmer.
Me too. I think the weird strawberryness goes away, and it's really a lot closer to like a mango Kolsch, and that I think sits better.
It tastes a little bit closer to that mango tart that you like so much. It still has that bitter flavor that I don't like. It's something about the hops in this.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
it's just the particular hops they're using in this, or the way that they're expressed or whatever, are not my favorite. But if you're not affected by that, which you aren't, this does get to be brighter and have more fruity flavors in it as it gets warmer. So this is not a cold beer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. So anyways, this has been Season 9, Episode 7 of the Beer and Broadband Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I've repeated that twice in this episode, and we'll catch you next time.